Hey everyone, this is Alan Thornton, President and CEO of St. John's Community Services, and special guest today, Kwaku Agyeman. He is our Director of Operations for Virginia, which means that he is responsible for all of our services that we offer to people we support in Virginia. Kwaku, welcome to this episode of Advocates for All. It's a pleasure because Kwaku serves on our leadership team at St. John's and has been with St. John's for a number of years. How many years have you been with us at this point in time?
Wow, that's a great question. I felt like I've been with St. John's on and off about 17 years now.
Wow, that's incredible. So you came for a period of time, stepped away for a little bit, and then came back.
Then I came back home, right?
And you started out in DC operations, if I remember correctly, right?
Right.
And a few years ago took over operations over in Virginia, and you work out of Annandale. But tell us a little bit about what service locations and kind of what do you offer in Virginia?
That's a great question. In Virginia, we provide supports in mostly a lot of our supports is in Northern Virginia, but we also provide supports in Loudoun and Winchester. And basically is getting people we support connected into the community. And hopefully build skill sets where they learn what they like to do, and then how well they do it. And then hopefully that will lead to those people being more independent and then becoming financially stable and economically independent. So that's really the goal, is us being a bridge to connect people.
Yeah, you guys do a lot with employment. I mean, it's been more challenging, obviously during the pandemic, but getting people employed is a big part of what you do in Virginia. And then there's a few residential sites as well that you also operate, and we support people. And we should just clarify that in Virginia, primarily right now, we're working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, correct?
We do on our residential side. But like you said, on our employment side, we support people who have any type of barrier to employment.
Very cool. So Kwaku, I've been wanting to have you on for a while, but also wanted to give you some space too. And part of that is, I would say that Virginia has experienced kind of some of the more challenging situations with the pandemic, and certainly with the number of active cases. And tragically, we've also lost a couple staff members, team members that you worked very closely with. And so obviously we grieve their loss. You certainly are way more connected, and it was very personal for you when we lost Mo and when we lost Ahmed. So talk about that for a little bit, just in the sense of, the pandemic hits, COVID hits, we're running like crazy to try to operationally keep people safe. We're starting to see active cases go up. And then, these tragedies happen. Speak a little bit to the individuals, and then also just what was it like, or has it been like, to go through that?
Definitely. I get a little, I get choked up. I thought I would be a little bit better prepared. So for us, for us, it was, we have the two tensions as a leadership team, trying to organize and prepare and respond as an organization, and knowing that the little things are the big things. So at that time, remember, we were having meetings and talking almost every day, every hour, in regards to securing PPE protocols and those different things, and scheduling the logistics of getting those supplies to the people we support and the staff. So and meeting with different vendors and supply chains, and not having things, and even going back and forth to Tennessee to get supplies for people in our area, in our region. So during that time, at that same time, what I was facing with was a mother who had a stroke, and she was hospitalized, and she was in New York, and everything out of the news in New York is everybody's dying and everybody's gonna die. And then my mom calls me on the phone and says, "Can you get me out of here? I don't want to die. I'm in a nursing home." So, and then we talked about having a travel restriction ban on leadership. So you had given me the approval to go to New York and bring my mom back. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that. So at that time, there was also a lot of miscommunication that was coming from the news in regards to, do you have to wear a mask or don't you have to wear a mask? And unfortunately, one of our staff members, we got a call that he was not doing well. He got tested for COVID, and he was in the hospital. And this staff member was a gentleman who was about 6'2", 6'3", 260, 270, really tall, stout, strong, healthy, right? And at first we were really worried about our individuals because they were so vulnerable too, because of those underlying conditions. So the first staff person that we know who had COVID, based on a lot of the information that was coming out at first, was, well, he should be okay, right? He's big, he's strong, he's healthy. So we immediately, shut down the home, and we had one staff decide to shelter in place to limit the amount of exposure to those individuals, and also for other staff. So that staff member ended up living there. But because we were able to, we had all that, we had PPE, we purchased it, we were able to supply the staff and those individuals the necessary equipment. So that individual, the first individual, he was hospitalized. We thought, we got word that he was doing well and he was about to come home. And then the next thing we heard, he passed away.
Yeah, yeah.
So that started sending shockwaves through the organization, and especially with other staff, because it started getting real, and staff were saying, well, my wife and my family members, they don't want me to work anymore, because if this person who died, who's strong and healthy, what does that mean for us?
Yeah. And it's totally understandable. You think about the people that are on our teams, right, that are working in residential services. They a lot of what they do is often hidden. In many ways, they're very much heroes because of their willingness, like you said, to shelter in place, to work at additional shifts, to try to minimize the number of people coming in and out of the homes and creating more risk. And I remember when we heard of his passing, that was, like you said, shockwaves. That was something that it made it that much more intense and that much more real, and created a lot of probably fear and anxiety, like you said, amongst the teams. How are we going? This really is a deadly virus. How do we respond? How do we continue to try to navigate and manage and staff up and get people in the midst of all of it?
Right. And then shortly after that, we got word that another home, another individual tested positive. And what we started having was significant staff shortages. And staff was saying, hey, listen, we can't do this. We saw one staff member pass away. We don't think that this is something we could do, right? So again, the next piece behind that is, I'm totally sorry. This is
no worries.
This is my son, because he saw me getting choked up. He's passing me notes on what to say.
It's the life of.
He's like, Dad, you gotta get it together. Advocates
great.
for all. These are the notes that he's trying to help me and
that's very sweet.
Encourage me. So
that's son right there. That's a great son.
That's so sorry about that.
No apologies at all. Please.
Yeah. So staff started not coming to work, and staff started calling off, and we were trying to figure out, are people calling off because they're fearful and anxious, and we hire staff to educate them, and or are people just not deciding they don't want to come back and risk it. So we even had our managers had to step up and start working in the homes. So in one home, we were down to 2 staff, and one of those staff got sick. He also had COVID. And I got a text from Edith, and she was working, and she just said, "Do you really care about me, Kwaku?"
Mm.
And I was like, I do. Um, she's just like, just make sure no one else dies.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh man, how can I keep this going, right? How can I stay strong? How can I, keep encouraging people when even myself, I was faced with the challenges. What changed for us was we had one individual. He also got diagnosed with COVID in that same house, and he went to the hospital. They diagnosed him with pneumonia. They diagnosed him with COVID, and he was a person that checked all the checkbox that would stay in the hospital. He also had some respiratory conditions, pre-existing conditions, and if he's anybody who needed close monitoring, it would be him. So we got a call a little later from the staff who was working in the house because he called earlier and the individual went 911. He said, "You wouldn't believe this. They sent the individual from the hospital back home in a cab, unescorted." And then at that time, it came really real to me. If we don't advocate and support the people who are the most vulnerable, who will?
Yeah.
If a hospital could put you in the cab unaccompanied and you're nonverbal and you just show up at the doorstep, there's no one else to do it but us. And then for us, this is what we signed up to do, is to help people and help them live their best life. Unfortunately, in that home, one of the individuals, another staff member passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we're down to two.
Yeah.
And everybody is saying, hey, you did everything right, but people are still passing away. What's going on? What also was really sad is because the way the person's faiths were in regards to and with the COVID and restrictions was not being able to really mourn with those individuals the way we would have liked to.
Yeah.
But
Because this was the earlier days of the virus, right? And so there were a lot of restrictions in terms of funerals, in terms of gatherings. And I know it was an incredibly difficult time because like you have such a big heart, Kwaku, and wanting to be with your team and with the families and just the limitations that were in place, making that very, very difficult, if not impossible. And I think about, now 215,000 people have passed away. And, that's a lot of families, right? And that have had to go through those experiences on their own or without loved ones around them to really support them like we would normally experience in a time of tragedy. And so, we lost two team members, and we were, blessed in the sense that even though we had active cases with people we support, the numbers seemed to be manageable for the most part. And unfortunately, we didn't lose any individuals that we support, I think due largely to the sacrifices made by you, by your managers, and by the people on the front lines, our direct support professionals. But you came out of that very much changed in some ways, right? Like it imprinted on you. We're still in the midst of this, and we probably have another 6 or 7 months ahead of us. But you've talked about over the last couple of months, not wasting the hurt, like, not letting that sense of loss, the actual loss, go to waste. And so that really resonated and touched people when they heard that. Can you kind of speak to what you mean by that? Like in the sense of not wanting to waste that loss?
What that meant, what I'm saying, to me, what that means is taking these hurts and losing two staff members. And even the other staff member who passed away, he was a person who didn't drink, he didn't party, he didn't smoke, he ate clean. He was the picture of someone of health, right? So, you originally start saying, like, why is all of this stuff happening to us and these two people? I mean, these two people probably were some of the most caring people that I met, right? And who were just selfless. And what I said there was to her, for me, it was to say, how do we take what we're learning? How do we and help educate, inform, and do a better job keeping as many people we come in contact with as healthy and safe as possible? And making sure our messages are consistent in regards to what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we can do that even better. And for me, it gave me a new sense of urgency in relation of saying that this COVID has just, kind of tore off the Band-Aid of some inequities. And what is our response going to be? Are we going to just say, hey, forget it, I'm done, I'm just, not go out? Or are we going to be the examples that we want to see? And I think for us, it's changed my view of saying, if anything, I'm more committed now than ever to the people we support. I'm more committed now than ever to even my family, to let them know that every single day, hey, Dad loves you, and the reason you might not know everything of what I'm doing, but just understand why I'm doing it is because I love you. And the same thing with the staff, that there's nothing that we're going to ask of you that as a leadership team that we're not asking of ourselves.
Well,
so
clearly your son's seeing that in action by the way he's kind of, giving that back to you, that note is priceless. That needs to be.
Yeah, that was him, right? This is a nose, right? You
would step in and have such empathy, and want to help you. It says a lot about your parenting as a father and what that means to him for sure. So
and he, cool if you don't mind, I can share what he told me to say, what advocates for all means to him.
Yeah.
Right? What does he see us doing? He says an advocate is available, right, in a time of need, dependable, viable and visible, even if it's virtual. Being that we are outstanding providers during a difficult time, we're cautious, we're caring and compassionate. We are attentive to details. That's the A in advocates. T, we're thoughtful and timely for providing supports and services. E, we provide essential supports. S, constantly evolving. And then A, always inclusive, attendant to all we do. And then he has the advocates. Then he has the L, the last L for all: listening, learning, caring, and sharing.
Wow, that's powerful. That's awesome, man. That we're sharing that at a town hall. That is gold right there, and it does encapsulate in so many ways, not just what St. John's is about, what we try to do, I think, but how you try to lead personally. And I think it's been obviously an enormously challenging time for everybody. But for those that have known a level of loss that others haven't had to know, it takes it to a whole different level. And I know that it's reinforced in you just the need to make sure that the people around you know how you feel about them, to know that your team knows how you feel about them. And then you've brought this up, organizationally, I think we're in a time of reflection, trying to figure out how do we improve as an organization? How do we really care about not just the people we support, but our team members, the people delivering those supports? And what does it look like to advocate for them? And what do we need to hear from them and learn from them? And how can we be the organization that they need us to be? So I know that's been something on your heart and something you've brought up in our leadership team meetings and that you are advocating for. This has been obviously a heavy conversation and rightfully so. How are you finding time? You've dealt with a lot this year, you mentioned at the outset kind of how your mom was doing and her health at the time, and she's doing better now, right? She's made some significant improvement. But how are you staying centered? How are you finding times to lighten that burden a little bit, to laugh a little bit? How are you doing self-care in the midst of all this?
Honestly, I've been trying to have more time, quiet times in the morning, right? Just kind of just praying, reflecting, and just trying to have that be centered in the morning before I even go out, before I respond to an email, before I talk. Our days are so late, right? What some inside the ballpark stuff is, we're up communicating with each other to 12, 1 o'clock, right?
Sure.
So it's hard to turn that off, and then we back up, 7, 8, communicate with each other again. So, one of the things that I've tried to do really is one, starting my day off really with a time of reflection and quiet time, and having things that challenge us to say the reason why we're in these situations is that we can show that there is still good, that these things are happening for a reason, because it illustrates that there are people who care about each other, no matter race, sex, creed, or anything. They just want to make people's lives better. And what really does get my juices really going is seeing us as an organization do the things that we said we were going to do and come back and do it. So that to me is really powerful, and not just being the talking heads, but really being the example we want to see. So that keeps me encouraged.
No, I appreciate that. And one of the things I want to share that you had shared at a town hall that really, I think, resonated with a lot of people and motivated a lot of people was, and you even referenced it in our conversation, how at one point in time, you're in the middle of all the bad stuff happening. You're like, why is this happening to us? Why is it happening to us? And you got to another place through reflection and through kind of centeredness, like, why not us? If there's a group, if there's a team of people that are equipped to be able to manage through this kind of adversity and deal with these kind of burdens, it's the team at St. John. So, and I think you have very much, modeled that, and your heart is one of the biggest hearts I know, and your love for the people that you support, as well as your team members and the organization, is just incredible. So, Kwaku, I want to thank you. So it's a pleasure to work alongside of you. It's a pleasure to work with you, and it's been inspirational to see how you've managed through such a really challenging, difficult time with suffering the losses that you all have suffered. And, I just thank you so much for, in the midst of that, not just not giving up, but really leading at a level that just inspires so many people. So thank you so much. You truly are an amazing advocate, Kwaku. So thank you.
I appreciate it. It got me even closer with my son. I don't think a year ago my son would have came in and given me any notes, because he's never, before this, he never saw me cry, and but this has allowed me to really even share with my boys that dad gets nervous too. And I need you to help me be a better person also. So.
Well, that's cool. And in the future, we're going to have to do a father-son.
We got, my God. Yeah.
Was that Jonas or was that Micah?
That was Jonas who came in.
All right, we'll have to have Jonas on, and he can walk us through that again. That's awesome. Right. So, Kwaku, thank you so very much, man.
All right, boss. Later.